visited Mexico City looking for the house of Octavio Paz, which I could not find. Cecilia Meirelles from Brazil, who actually came to India and wrote a whole book about India called Poemas Escritos. I thought that I'll pay homage to them by going to Latin America and opportunity to serve in Latin America and to watch Latin America very closely. Because as a tourist or as a professor who is or an academic or a
Hola y bienvenidos a otro episodio de mi canal de YouTube Español por Dentro, y para mí es realmente un honor y placer tener un invitado muy especial. Tengo conmigo hoy el señor Abhay Kumar, conocido como Abhay K, que es un diplomático y también un poeta. Él no habla español, así que esta entrevista va a ser en inglés. Firstly, thank you so much, Mr. Abhay K, for being here and giving your time to us.
Muchas gracias.
Wonderful. I told in my introduction that you may not be speaking too much Spanish, so we will be doing the interview in English, but it's fantastic to hear words in Spanish from you. Déjame introducir a Abhay K. Es conocido como Abhay K. Abhay K es un poeta, diplomático y escritor indio, nacido en el diciembre de 1980 en Rajgir. Además de su carrera en el servicio diplomático, ha ganado reconocimiento por su trabajo literario, especialmente en poesía. Su obra refleja temas universales como la naturaleza, la espiritualidad y el amor, así como cuestiones sociales y políticas. Entre sus libros más conocidos se encuentran The Alphabets of Latin America y Monsoon. Aquí tengo este libro, The Alphabets of Latin America. Abhay también es conocido por haber editado antologías de poesía mundial como The Bloomsbury Anthology of Great Indian Poems, promoviendo un enfoque multicultural de la literatura. Así que it's an absolute pleasure, sir, to have you once again, and you have graced the occasion by being here. So for me and my channel, it's an absolute pleasure to have you once again. Thank you so much, sir.
Muchas gracias. No vimento. I'll mix a bit of Portuguese. I understand you, like I understand your Spanish because I speak Portuguese.
Wow, wonderful. That's great, sir. So, if you have all seen Mr. Abhay K's work and his presence on social media, it's something that is worth mentioning, because apart from being the Deputy Director General of the ICCR, he is a prolific writer. And as I introduced him and I showed you all this book, this is the book that we're going to talk about, and we will be also towards the end of this chat, we'll be having the good fortune of Mr. Abhay K himself reading out some of his poems, and in my humble effort, I have tried to translate some of them into Spanish, so we'll be having the recitations of both. So, Mr. Abhay, firstly, I want to start straight away with the book. So, what inspired you to write this beautiful looking the cover of the book, The Alphabets of Latin America? And I mean, I've read some of the poems here. They're just so wonderful, and really it touches the common person. So, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I have myself been inspired by the poets and poet diplomats of Latin America. For example, Octavio Paz, who was Mexico's ambassador to India in 1970s. And he has written a number of books, for example, In Light of India, Vislumbres del Ind. I think that's the Spanish original. Yes. Spanish title.
Right.
And also Pablo Neruda and Gabriela Mistral, and so on. Of course, there are so many more poet diplomats from Latin America who have made a mark in the world of poetry and literature. And it was my desire, my wish to pay homage to them. So I visited Latin America, many countries in Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I've been to all the three houses of Pablo Neruda in Chile,
Wow.
and I've visited Mexico City looking for the house of Octavio Paz, which I could not find. And also, have been um, reading about the works of other Latin American writers, for example, Mario Vargas Llosa, or mm, the great novelist Garcia Marquez,
Okay.
and so on. So it's been Cecilia Meirelles from Brazil, who
Mm-hmm.
actually came to India and wrote a whole book about India called Poemas Escritos na India, and Clarice Lispector, and so on. So not only that, I mean, one of the Brazil's great writer, great novelist, one of the first novelists, has also in his novel, The Posthumous Memory of Brass Cubas, has written
Mm-hmm.
about India. I mean, so India has been, I think, in the imagination of Latin American writers, and I thought that I'll pay homage to them by going to Latin America and writing about them.
That's wonderful. So my next question, Mr. Abhay, is how did your experiences as a diplomat influence your writing and perspective on Latin American cultures? I know you just mentioned right now that you have visited, almost so many countries and all the three houses of Pablo Neruda. So, as a diplomat, how did that influence your writing and perspective on Latin American cultures?
Well, being a diplomat at least gave me the opportunity to travel to Latin America, to live there. I was in Brazil for 3 years, in Brasilia, and so that was also an opportunity to serve in Latin America and to watch Latin America very closely. Because as a tourist or as a professor who is, or an academic, or if you, as a poet even, I mean, if you go and attend a residency, stay for 1 week, and you live for 3 years, there's a huge difference between that. So being a diplomat gave me enough time and space to think about Latin America, to experience Latin American culture, and have a dialogue with the living and the dead writers, uh, uh, dead but immortal
Right.
writers, and that's how I think I was able to have a dialogue with Gabriel Garcia Marquez, or Gabriela Mistral, or Pablo Neruda, and or so most of the poems I have written in this book, in which
Mm-hmm.
appear in the alphabets of Latin America, are actually dialogues.
Mm-hmm.
So uh,
Mm-hmm.
they are also my perspectives on how I see Latin America, how an Indian poet and diplomat sees Latin America, but mostly a poet, because most of my poet comes first, and then that comes the diplomat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I have had the opportunity to, and the beauty of writing about the places I have been so fascinated about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Amazing. And when you talk about firstly as a poet, it's something that tells me that no matter what kind of profession you may have, but the first things as you grow up doing, the things that you like doing as you grow up, they can never leave you from within you. So that's something that really shows in your approach towards writing this book, that you say that first as a poet and only then as a diplomat that you've actually looked at this region. So could you share some memorable moments, Mr. Abhay, or stories from your travels through Latin America that actually made their way into this book?
Well, for example, I went to Amazon, and when you go to Amazon, actually you are basically expecting that you are going to meet some Indians, the native Indians,
Mm.
and maybe you're going to see anaconda, the mythical anaconda, maybe,
Right.
and so on. So that experience itself, when you don't get to see them, you have a different picture of which is real picture, not the romantic picture of Amazon. So that comes, it's very much comes in the first poem itself, which I think you have translated into Spanish.
Yes.
And the same way, like when I was traveling to Atacama desert, and the whole experience was so spiritual for me. I mean, it was that I write in my poem about the Andes and Atacama desert. I write about that experience. So also, like visiting 3 houses of Pablo Neruda, in two in Santiago, and no, one in Santiago, one in the suburb of Santiago, and the third one in his like the which is by the sea. So all these houses, I mean, you see and you see, I mean, what a romantic poet Neruda was, and how much childhood mattered to him. I saw like a statue of Nataraja in his house at Isla Negra, and then so when I was visiting the house of I think George Amado in uh, in in Brazil, in the in the coastal city of Salvador. Uh, uh, it was I saw in his house Ganesha, and uh, mm, the sculpture of the couple of Mathun couple, the amorous couple, and so on. So these things I noticed, and for example, the poem Carnival, which is about carnival in Rio de Janeiro, comes from participating in the carnival and what I saw there. And I was so fascinated that I thought to bring proof rock, of T.S. Eliot to Rio, and show, and how would proof rock see, and experience the carnival. So it's not just a dialogue between me and and the Latin America, but also I bring in other literary references, popular literary references from UK, from US, and I've written about mm, the Spanish poet uh, Lorca, and Lorca has a very famous book called A Poet in New York, and when I was in New York, I thought that I've been experiencing the duende, the soul, the spirit of Lorca,
Right.
and I write a poem walking with Lorca, or bringing him alive there.
Right.
So all these incidences, very interesting. I mean, same thing. Like I was looking for Borges in the cemetery at La Recoleta, or how do you pronounce it?
La
Uh,
Recoleta, sí.
yeah, La Recoleta in Buenos Aires, and I could not find him. So I write a poem about Borges. So on.
Wonderful. That's amazing. And when we do come to the recitation of the poems, I think that's one of the poems that I really liked and loved amongst all that you wrote, and that's why I wanted to recite that in Spanish. So we'll come to that in a while. But that's fascinating, Abhay, what you have shared and your experiences, with a lot of these writers and the spirit that you sort of felt of these writers as well in your travels. And moving on to my next question, then is. The book covers different countries and cultures. So, how did you approach capturing the diversity of the region in your poetry? Because we think of Latin America as one continent, or South America as one continent, but actually come to think of it, although almost all of them except I think Brazil and Guyana, that small little tiny island, they speak they don't speak Spanish, but then there is a lot of other variety as well and differences. So, how did you approach capturing the diversity of this region in your poetry?
Well, I mean, Latin America is vast actually, and you have also, I mean, Latin America includes actually Central America and the Caribbean, and as down south to the Easter Island in
Mm-hmm.
Chile, which is, so what I thought that, to capture the immense diversity, I would use the alphabetical model. So A, B, C, D, rather than going by any other method. And of course, I have not been able to capture the whole diversity of Latin America, but just a bit of it. It's just a kind of mm, tip of the iceberg. What is out
Yes,
there,
sir. Mhm.
and it's more like giving a test of Latin America rather than giving a whole picture of Latin America. And so I chose those iconic places which people know about, but don't know about enough. They do not know about the history of those places or things which are hidden behind them. So when I write, for example, the Christ the Redeemer, for example, I write about the experience I have had with Christ the Redeemer, and also my imagination that how Christ the Redeemer may fly like every night and comes back to the Mount Corcovado by at dawn, and uh, and so I try to have first-hand experience of most of the places I have written about. Some of the places are by imagination, reading about them, experiencing them, thinking about them. So this vast diversity, I have not only included the personalities, but also the monuments, the iconic monuments, iconic writers, iconic personalities from history, like historical personalities as well. The cuisine, for example, there's a poem about Brazil's famous drink, which is caipirinha, and 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 there is a poem about you know uh, the, the the very hot chili which is used in Mexico. So so all these ingredients which make Latin American experience, for example, carnival. Of course, carnival is a Brazilian experience. So I've tried to bring in all these elements to give a picture of Latin America, a portrait of Latin
Amazing, amazing.
America.
That's amazing, and you've sort of also answered the next question that I was about to ask you about the structure of the book. Using the alphabets as a framework. So I think that is something that now I understand as to why you went through it, and that's quite interesting as well, because this way I think that this sort of structure allows you to cover as much of Latin America as you could, and the fact that you say, Abhay, that this is just a taste that you have given. So I think, I strongly recommend everyone who is watching this video that you should taste this particular, yeah, I can say the dish that the chef, Mr. Abhay has created, and for people who don't, who are not probably related to Spanish studies and hence may not have too much knowledge of South America. I think it's such a easy to read book that and as you say, Abhay, that more than it being a poem, it was more like a dialogue that you've had with these regions or with these places that you have written about. I think, and that is what I think is the USP of this book, that it is so accessible in terms of being able to understand, because sometimes poetry can be can have layers of understanding, which can be sometimes very difficult for a normal reader to gauge and understand. So I think from that perspective, for anyone who hasn't even visited South America or doesn't know much about South America, I think this would be a wonderful introduction to South America that way. So carrying on from my previous question about the diversity, and you talked about the structure of the book as well. So what challenges, and because I'm sure, Abhay, that writing a book of such magnitude and such diversity must have had a lot of challenges for you, in spite of the fact that you are a prolific writer. So what challenges did you face while writing about this region that has such a rich and complex history?
Mhm. Well, the challenge was first of all that I mean, uh, I am not a Spanish speaker, so I learned Portuguese while I was in Brazil, and I translated 60 Brazilian poets from Portuguese into English. A book called New Brazilian Poems, which I have it here. So, so the challenge was, I think, the language. Plus, there was also, lots of cultural differences. So, to understand properly the nuance of those cultural differences, I think that's also been a challenge, because the surface similarity, can take you to in wrong direction, and plus also I think Latin America is vast, so traveling in Latin America itself is a challenge. So you can try to go to as many places and take as many connecting flights, and but still, like, to go and see Latin America, I think one needs to live longer there. Maybe I would say a decade, to properly travel and see the countryside, and just not there be at the capital cities. So I think that's another challenge. uh, if I knew Spanish, probably I would have been able to read more extensively about Latin American literature. And what I have read is actually in translations, in English translation. And my wish would be to kind of read, Latin American writers in Spanish. I think that would be a true pleasure.
Wow, wonderful. So it's never too late, Abhay. So I hope that you can learn Spanish in the near future and be able to read
Yes,
the
I'm looking
literature.
forward to that.
Great. So now coming to my next question, Abhay, in what ways do you think Latin American literature and poetry have influenced your own writing style? Because you mentioned that you have read a lot of the translations of these Latin American authors. So how has that influenced your own writing style?
Well, for example, like some of the poems in these books are actually, the rewritings of the poems written by the Latin American writers. For
Mhm.
example, there's a poem called Gabriela Mistral, which is based on the poem Dame la Mano by Gabriela Mistral, and it's a poem. If you read the original Dame la Mano, which is Give Me Your Hand,
Mhm.
uh, you can see the similarity, or But I have used the idea, but it's completely different poem. But it's written in the same style. Uh,
Mm.
and if you allow me, I'll read it.
Sure.
Uh, Read me your poem, and we shall float freely across the cosmos like a comet. Read me your poem, and I'll be blessed like a butterfly drunk on nectar. We shall drink the same verse from the fountain of the universe, like two hummingbirds in mid-air, like two hummingbirds, nothing more. You are swift wind, and I'm a fearless horse, and we shall leap together to the moon, because we are two bodies, but one soul, and nothing more.
Beautiful.
That's a poem inspired by Gabriela Mistral, and
Mm.
so on. So uh, it's a so I it's kind of a dialogue, and of course, uh, I remember writing a poem about Brasilia, which is inspired from an essay by Clarice Lispector, her essay on Brasilia. So, for example, this whole poem, Brasilia is mostly white, Brasilia is red laterite, Brasilia is diaphanous gossamer filled with light. Brasilia is a string of shining pearls at night, Brasilia is an exotic Turkish delight, Brasilia is a coiled serpent ready to bite. All these, the whole poem, each line starts with Brasilia, and that's an inspiration from Clarice Lispector. So they are. Most of these poems I've written are dialogues with the original writers, Proof Rock at Rio is it's an inspiration from the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock of T.S. Eliot. If you see this is one of my favorite poems from this book, and you all know about the famous line of the Prufrock poem. Women in the room come and go, talking of Michelangelo. And here is the line. Let's go. The line here is in the samba drum. Dancers come and go, showing off their torso. So this is something which I have borrowed from. But the whole poem is a rewriting of "Let's go then to Rio to the carnival." When drums are beating like heartbeats of lovers meeting after a long interval, and samba dancers are out in the streets. Let's go and catch a flight to Rio. Flights full of revelers that take off at night. Oh, do not say no. Let's go.
Amazing. I think when you talk about the certain parts that you have read, they relate to the fact that as a tourist, when you go, it's very different from when you actually stay there and really look at the region from completely different eyes, than just as a tourist. So again, I think reiterating the fact that you have to live there for a longer period of time to be able to really appreciate the beauty of that place.
True that. And you should see, you should travel, you should read. It's not just traveling. If you go as a tourist, you won't get anything because all you will see is the nice place, But every place has a history, There's a history, and there's a literary history. So carnival, anybody can go and see the carnival. But when I see carnival, I see it, differently than anybody else's. That's the poet's eye.
Okay.
And what I have read so far, everything, what I have seen in the past, they all come together in the creation of literature. So, that's how these poems get written.
Okay. Great. And my next question then, Abhay, although I think you have mentioned already a lot of the poets or authors, but are there any other Latin American poets or authors who inspired you particularly during the writing of this book?
Well, I mean, I was like, for example, the Brazilian writer Cecilia Meirelles was certainly an inspiration because she had come to India and written a book on India, Poemas Escritos na India. Also, the famous Latin American writer Eduardo Galeano, who was, I've written a poem in this book, A Letter to Eduardo, and he was also an influence. Other writers, for example, from Peru, Cesar Bayaco, whose poem After Mass is my favorite poem, and I have also paid homage to him writing a poem. And the Brazilian writer Castro Alves and Carlos Drummond de Andrade also had an influence. So it's like many, Carlos Fuentes, the Mexican writer. So Botero, the artist, actually, I saw works of Botero in Bogota and in Medellin, So firsthand, and I was very inspired, and I wrote a poem which is a concrete poem which looks like a woman body.
Amazing. Well, that's fantastic. I think the fact that you have been inspired by such great writers is the reason why it sort of reflects in the book as well, and that's why I think it's a wonderful read. And although I have spoken about this book during the discussion, but as a poet yourself, as a writer of this book, Abhay, how do you hope readers, especially those who are unfamiliar with Latin America, how do you think that they will engage with this book? Or how would you like them to engage with this book?
I think they should use my poems just as windows to enter into a large palace, which is Latin America, and explore it. So my poems are just, they provide them windows, the small little windows, entry points. And for example, if they read about Gabriela Mistral, for example, or Castro Alves, they should explore more of works of Castro Alves and see who was he and what did he write about. What is Carnival? Read more about Carnival. So I think, these poems are kind of, they are guides, they are direction, they are sort of hints to explore, hints to the readers that they should be looking at something greater to explore in while they are reading these poems. So, for example, caipirinha. So they should know more about caipirinha and cachaça and how did it originate. So it's sort of a way to explore Latin America. These are just like hints, like riddles,
Right.
puzzles.
Right. It's wonderful, and the fact that the subtitle that you give to this book, "The Alphabets of Latin America: A Carnival of Poems." I think what really I can add to what Abhay himself has said is that I think you should just enjoy when you are reading this book, and that enjoyment will come naturally because the descriptive nature of the way he has written is something that will make you feel the place in your own heart and mind. So I think that's fantastic. As we head towards the end of this fascinating chat, Abhay, so my last question to you is that do you have plans to write any more works on Latin America or explore other regions in future works?
Certainly, I would love to go back to Latin America someday and explore more of, I think, the Caribbean part and the countries I've not been to. Central America. I've been to Nicaragua, but I would like to explore more of the Central America and also the Caribbean and some of the countries which I have not had missed visiting. And also, in the similar way, after Latin America, I was posted in Madagascar, which is part of Africa and Indian Ocean. So I have done a similar alphabetical work for Africa, which is inspired by the title of the book by Octavio Paz, and it's called In Light of Africa. And that's a poetry collection I have put together, and I hope that it gets published sometime soon, next year
Wonderful,
maybe.
wonderful. That
Yeah.
that will be great. But as a Spanish language enthusiast and someone who's passionate about Spain and South America and the language, I think I would just hope and request you that you please do continue to write more and more about the Hispanic world, and I'm sure that people would love to read that as well. So. Thank you so much, Abhay, for this fascinating time. But we are not done yet, as I promised to my audience at the top of the show that we are going to end this show or in this chat with readings of three of the poems that Abhay has written, and I'm thankful to him that he accepted this request of me, translating three of his poems. So these are tentative translations, and I hope that you will enjoy reading the translations as much as you obviously will enjoy the original. So let's start, Abhay. So I would like you to please read first up the poem of Amazon or Amazon.
Mhm. Well, Amazon. The anaconda was missing, so they offered us piranha fishing in consolation and bathing with pink dolphins in the Black River. They caught the poor baby caimans at night while they were sleeping and took us across the river to meet the Indians. There were none.
Okay, so I'll read the translation that I've done. Amazon, faltaba la anaconda. Así nos ofrecieron piranha de pesca como consuelo y nos bañamos con delfines rosas en el río Negro. Cogieron los caimanes bebés por la noche mientras dormían y nos atravesaron al río para ver a los indios, pero no había nadie. So this
Muchas
was
gracias.
Amazon. And the next poem that I would like Abhay to read is Barolo Palace.
Barolo Palace. Okay. Yes. Barolo Palace is in Buenos Aires, just to give you the background.
Right.
On a Sunday evening in Buenos Aires, Rosa shows me Divine Comedy. I reach there exactly when the tour is about to begin. She laughs like Beatrice, her voice, bird song. We meet in hell. She accompanies me from purgatory to paradise, a lighthouse connecting the cities of Buenos Aires and Montevideo across the sea. I sit in a bell jar atop the palace, pondering over the hell and heaven. Rosa makes all the difference with her song and fragrance.
Beautiful. Palacio Barolo. So this is the Spanish translation which I've tried. Durante una tarde de domingo en Buenos Aires, Rosa me enseña comedia divina. Llegó ahí, en el sitio donde empieza el tour. Se ríe como Beatriz, su voz canto de ave. Nos vemos en el infierno, me acompaña ella, del purgatorio al paraíso. Un faro que conecta las ciudades de Buenos Aires y Montevideo al otro lado del mar. Me siento en una campana encima del palacio, reflexionando sobre el infierno y cielo. Rosa hace toda la diferencia con su canción y fragancia. So
Muchas
now,
gracias.
thank you, Abhay. And the last one is Borges, and one of my favorite writers, Borges, and I think the poem that you will now listen to in English will be something that will definitely sort of make you feel the presence, or you can say the absence of Borges. So yes, please go ahead, sir.
I know it's a quote by Borges. I know of one Greek labyrinth, which is a single straight line. Along that line, so many philosophers have lost themselves. George Louis Borges, Death and the Campus. Looking for Borges, I came to Argentina. I found him nowhere. I searched all the libraries and cafes, all the labyrinthine streets of Buenos Aires. He was not even at La Recoleta. I found merely a mirror and a face staring at me in disbelief. It's hard to believe. Everyone told me Borges lived in Argentina.
Wonderful. And so let me try my translation here. So Borges. Buscando Borges, vine a Argentina. No lo vi en ninguna parte. Busqué todas las bibliotecas y cafeterías, todas las calles, laberintos de Buenos Aires. Ni siquiera estaba en La Recoleta. Solo encontré un espejo y una cara que me miraba en incredulidad. Es difícil de creer, me decían todos, que Borges vivía en Argentina. So these are the three poems that I tried translating, and thank you so much, Abhay, for such a wonderful time that you've given us. You've taken us, transported us to the world of Latin America through your through your answers.
Mundo
So
America Latino.
no, I mean, just this interview, I'm sure would have transported many of our listeners into it. So, I think you should buy this book to be able to actually really appreciate the beauty of the writing of Abhay, as well as the beauty of South America. So, and Borges especially is someone whom I've admired since long, and the fact that he actually wrote about a city called Varanasi. Of course, we all know that, and but the beauty of it all is that he never visited the city, so it was all pure imagination.
True
So
that. So see how writers write.
yeah, and the fact that you have written about places, so I think that sort of resonates with what Borges also wrote. So thank you so much, Abhay. Ha sido un placer hablar con señor Abhay K, el poeta indio y también un diplomático. Y espero que Abhay pueda aprender español. I hope that Abhay can learn Spanish in future and can actually read the books in Spanish and maybe write in Spanish someday. Yeah. So
Muchas gracias. I hope to see you again.
thank you so much. I hope to keep in touch with you, Abhay K. So this was Abhay K, a poet and diplomat who has written this book, The Alphabets of Latin America. And I will link the Amazon link of this. I'll put it in the description of the video, and you can go ahead and check that out. So thank you so much, Abhay K, for your time. And bueno, hasta el siguiente capítulo de Español por Dentro. Ciao.
Ciao. Bye.